So let's talk about this, man. Lawsuit. Superman banned? It's not going to release everywhere? What the hell's going on here? Let's break it down. Let's talk about it. So this came out over the weekend. Actually, I think it might have came out on Friday, but you guys weren't there. I did a live stream, but nobody showed up, so nobody saw it. The estate of Superman creator Joseph Schuster has filed a lawsuit against Warner Brothers and DC. They claim the studio lacks the rights to release James Gunn's Superman in a number of territories, including Canada, the United Kingdom, Ireland, and Australia. And this is coming from Deadline. Okay, couple of things to talk about with this. Since this happened, Warner Brothers has come out and said they deny these claims and they will be fighting this in court. Okay, so maybe when this first came out, a lot of us were like, okay, well, they'll probably just pay whatever, they'll settle, and then it's, they're going to release the film. Apparently, Warner Brothers plans to fight this tooth and nail. So they're going to get in there and try to stop this. Now, the brief sort of TLDR of why this is even a thing is because the two Jewish boys from Cleveland that created Superman, I'm pretty sure they sold it to DC for like $100, maybe less. Might have even been $69. Very low amount. I think even with inflation, it's like around $1,500. I've seen people speculate, okay? And that contract was bullshit. It sucked. It sucked ass. It was not a good contract. And, this situation, it's good to remind everybody that in these situations, unfortunately, even companies like Marvel and DC, who we generally like, and we like the characters, and we celebrate their catalogs, they have unfortunately not always treated their talent the best. And I think I don't know if it was Joe Schuster or the other kid, who I'm blanking on his name right now. But I remember hearing a story about how Superman became a Broadway play, and it was out on Broadway. And this dude was so broke, the guy that had created Superman, he was so broke, he could not even afford to go see his own creation in a play on Broadway. Okay? That's just like one example of showing you how badly these dudes got screwed over and how much DC has, of course, benefited from the character of Superman. Now, over time, there have been other lawsuits which basically just say, hey, when you guys gave these kids $100 and gave them this contract, it was exploitative, it was super messed up, and so now we're going to renegotiate things. This has happened with Superman and the estates of Schuster and Siegel. This has also happened with Bill Finger to Bob Kane. If you know the story there, Bill Finger, pretty important piece of creating Batman. For a long time, Bob Kane had kind of taken the credit, and Bill Finger was not actually given a lot of credit. Over time, you have lawsuits which go back into these situations, reinvestigate them, and try to become more equitable. So over time, the Schuster estate, the Bill Finger estate, these different estates have won more and more rights to these characters and to be paid for the use of these characters. Okay, so that's kind of the TLDR of what's going on with this. Now, does this actually mean anything as far as the Superman film? Well, I wanted to pull this up and show you. This is not unique to Gunn Superman. This happened in 2006 with Superman Returns. This also happened in 2013 for Man of Steel. And so it seems like anytime there's a big Superman movie within, the last 20 years, it seems like it's always a time that these different estates will get out there, make some noise, maybe put a lawsuit through and try to shake things up. In both of these prior examples, the courts ended up siding with DC and striking down these lawsuits. So, I actually don't think this will affect the Superman movie. there's a chance that it does because there are a couple of things that are different this time around. I think number one, there is a difference in the state of the press and the state of fandom. I noticed, and I wonder if you guys noticed this too, the trades that covered this were kind of unkind. The headlines they put out there were pretty crazy, and I think it's just a lingering effect of like their relationship with James Gunn. I really don't think a lot of those people like James Gunn, and I think a lot of that had to do with him attacking Adam B. Vary and other trade reporters for just doing their job at the beginning of like his whole thing. And so a lot of the headlines for this were even more aggressive than what I remember from the past. So that's like one kind of a difference. And I wonder if that could manifest into any difference of opinion within the courts. And then the only other thing that's different this time around is Trump. And he might have just started this crazy freaking trade war with a lot of other countries. We don't get political here, but I do think that could cause certain courts in other countries to look at things like this slightly differently than they would before. So wouldn't it be absolutely wild if Canada, Australia, the UK, Ireland, a lot of these other territories, wouldn't it be really interesting if the courts there, because this is not a United States court issue, this would be the courts of those particular countries. And I think what the estate is trying to do is renegotiate within international courts as far as what they are owed with these sort of situations. So wouldn't it be fascinating if this new kind of trade war situation and some of the tension in the international communities would perhaps push some of these international courts to side in a different direction than they normally would, mostly against American companies. That's really what it comes down to. Think about it from that perspective. These are American companies that are asserting that they do have the rights that the estate is saying they lack. And it's going to be up to these international courts to decide what that looks like on a country-by-country, territory-by-territory basis. I think it's a fascinating story. I think it's really interesting. I think it's obviously something that Gunn and Warner Brothers does not want to be out there and circulating in the press. But I also think these are important moments because it is absolutely true that the corporation Warner Brothers and the corporation of DC has not been super kind to these estates and to the people that have created these stories. So it's kind of like a chance for us to speak truth to power a little bit and allow for the sort of dark side of DC and Warner Brothers to get out there a little bit to the mainstream audience, because normally this is something people just don't think about or consider at all. This is probably why these lawsuits tend to happen around the release of these big movies, because in some ways the estates want to latch on to the news cycle and the popularity of these big event movies to get their story out there. And I do feel their story deserves to be told. And I do think this is an example of corporations screwing people over, potentially screwing people over for 50 plus years. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this all works out. I would imagine it's all going to get cleared up one way or another before the film comes out. But man, it will be ridiculous if this actually goes through and if this actually blocks Superman in certain territories. And we'll look back to like this day and this story and we were like, oh man, I don't really think it's going to do much. I don't really think it has much to do with anything. And then all of a sudden, Superman's not out in Canada. I mean, like, what, we've got Canadian fans. Like, Trev, what are you going to do? Like, what are you Canadians going to do? What are you Englishmen going to do? What are you Australia, mate? Like, what are y'all going to do if Superman doesn't release? You just going to see Fantastic Four again and Thunderbolts again? What's the plan, man? I'm not really sure, but this blew up over the weekend. And so I wanted to give my take on it. Don't worry, it's probably going to be fine. And to be honest with you, I don't want this to happen. I give Gunn a lot of crap. I think the Superman movie doesn't look great, but I still want to see Superman. Come on. I still want to see Superman, and I want it to have its totally fair chance out there to be successful. At the end of the day, if Superman's very successful and the DCU pops off, I'll be able to make coverage about it, and that'll be real chill. So, yeah, that is what it is. That's the story. That's my breakdown. Is Superman going to get blocked? I don't know. You tell me. Thanks for watching. And if you like this clip, smash a like on the actual video and subscribe to this channel. That way more of these clips get into your feed. I've also linked the full episode below if you want to check out the entire thing, including the Q&A we do with fans. You can also watch this show live. We do it live Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And you can also find all of my content, including the videos I put on my main YouTube channel, on the podcast feed.